What is up, everyone? Circon here, bringing you guys another rant. Oh my god, I needed to do this video like a year ago. So, spoiler alert, rant video, alright? If you don't like these kinds of videos, I totally get it. It's quite salty and stuff like this. If you just want some good vibes, check some of my other videos that are, just replays or, stream highlights, stuff like that. Perfectly fine. But just so you're warned, this is going to be quite ranty and probably a little bit salty. And also, as a reminder, this is, of course, totally my opinion. It's cool if you don't agree. It's cool if you do agree. But for me, this is going to make my life easier because I'm going to make this video a comment on my Twitch chat. So whenever people ask, what don't you like about the matchmaking, Circon? I don't have to go on a whole rant again on the stream and keep my stream a little bit less salty, and I can just keep people going to this video where they have a relatively lengthy discussion, ranty video about what I don't like about the current matchmaking. So for those who don't know, about a year ago or so, the matchmaking changed, where it's now a set of 3 different matchmakings that you can possibly get. Yeah, there is sometimes a weird, like, one-off matchmaking that doesn't comply to the template. But most of all, it's basically this. So, the current matchmaking currently looks for 3, 5, 7 matchmaking first, then it looks for same tier matchmaking, and then it looks for the 5, 10 matchmaking templates. 3, 5, 7 means that there's a 3 top tier, 5 mid tier, 7 bottom tier. Same tier speaks for itself, and 5, 10 is basically just a +1, a -1 divide, where, for example, you have 5 tier 8 and 10 tier 7s. So, as you can see on the screen, I put down a number of things that people always tell me about and why people think it's fine and stuff like this. So I figure, I'll tackle them one by one and you'll see where we end up. So number 1 would be, but Circon, where would the tank diversity be if you would only see +1, -1 matchmaking, which is the matchmaking I most like. All right. Actually, we should just say this beforehand. My perfect matchmaking would be literally reversed. I would like the matchmaking to look for 5-10 matchmaking first. If that doesn't work out, I want it to look for the same tier. And as the final option, I want them to look for the 3-5-7 matchmaking. Just literally reverse it. And because my issue with the matchmaking is that +2, -2 matchmaking creates a lot of disruption in how much fun you can have in an average game of World of Tanks. I think it would be way smoother and way more fun if the matches were more +1, -1 and less +2, -2. So here comes the tank diversity thing. It's like, well, if you have +2, -2, you'll see a lot more tanks. It's going to be a lot more diverse to play against. Otherwise, you're only facing the same tanks over and over again. All right, so there is well over 400 tanks in this game, most of which are situated around tier 8 because there's well over 100 premiums, which are mostly in tier 8. And tier 8 is the matchmaking that's most fucked because the tier 8 tank versus tier 10 is simply no fun. But neither is tier 6 versus tier 8 or tier 5 versus tier 7. So tank diversity is pretty much a useless argument because there's a million tanks in this game, and with +1, -1, that still means 3 tiers of tank diversity, which is more than enough. More than enough. And even then, even in +2, -2, if you play a lot, you will find yourself facing a lot of the same tanks regardless. You will always see more T-67s than you will see Jacksons. Or whatever the case is, or the Wolverine, right? You will always see more T-67s. Like, it doesn't matter at this point. If there were only 50 tanks in the game, sure. At this point, doesn't fucking matter, is no longer an issue. The other one is, well, what about the challenge of +2? It feels really good as a bottom tier tank to do really well in +2 games. Yes, it does. But the amount of times you will actually have a really good game being bottom tier for an average Joe player is minimal. Absolutely minimal. And if you're a new player and you only have lower tiers, you're not even at tier 8 yet, By God, is it an uphill fight to get to the sweet spot that is tier 9. So, sure, it feels good that you can overcome that challenge, but I don't think it's worth overcoming the 1 in 10 battle, and that's, you know, really good odds. Like, I don't think a lot of people will have this. But say 1 in 10 battles you will overcome. You have a really good game in +2. Those other 9 games where you get your face kicked in by +1 and +2, especially the +2, I don't think it's worth the stress, hassle, and blood pressure of fighting that one to have that one-off challenge. Even if you're bottom tier in 5-10 matchmaking, trust me, people are dumb enough to give you a lot of challenges to overcome to still win the game that will still feel really good. And there's numerous of fun games, exciting games happening at same tier in 5-10 matchmaking that I don't think we need the salty blood pressure of 357 to make up for that. I honestly don't think so. Alright, so here comes the other thing. It's like being top tier once yourself. So once you finally crack the code or something like that, and you're finally the top tier in your tier 7, and you can finally stomp the tier 5s. Most of the time, it's too easy. If you're playing a Tiger 1, you can utterly wreck so many tier 5s before they can even respond with the DPM you have, right? You have 240 alpha, they're short reload. Let's just take the Tiger 1 for example, because a lot of people don't even like it, but I think it's really good. 240 alpha, short reload, a lot of tanks at tier 5. The TDs have 350 health. 2 shots, they're dead. For people that like to go for gun marks, there is not enough health to go around in a lot of these games where you're top tier to actually farm a lot of damage or actually do the damage you need to do before the game ends. Because if you're a good player and you're at the top tier, the chances of you winning are pretty big. Especially, and that's another thing I don't like about 357, is that if you're top tiers, if say it's 357 matchmaking, tier 7, 8, 9, there's 3 tier 9s fighting against 3 tier 9s. If one of those 3s is not good, or if all of them are not good, or 2 of them are not good, or slightly average versus good people at tier 9, you're doomed. You're utterly doomed, because this power level difference between tier 7s and 9s is crazy. The only matchmaking that has been well done, I think, is tier 9s facing tier 10s, because the fight is not that big, but big enough to know there's a change and you can actually do stuff. Again, +1 is really nice. Having, for example, 10 tier 8s facing 5 tier 9s gives you a lot more breathing room, and you'll have a lot more health to fight the tier 9s as well, right? Like, it's just crazy how big the difference is with +2, -2. I get that the game started off even worse with +3, -3 bullshit. But yeah, the game evolves, we get more players. And especially, you know, I play in a European server. I can easily play against +1, -1 a whole freaking day and not have a long queue time, trust me. And again, you could just have the matchmaking look for same tier after, and then 357 as the last resort if the matchmaking is actually that long, right? So being top tier once yourself, I don't think is worth the hassle of the 9 complete 8 games that you have before it, right? I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it for new players, not at all. Another thing that people always bring up is looking up to bigger tanks. So this is really bizarre, and it doesn't actually get said that much. But some people actually believe that +2, -2 is there so you can look up to the bigger tanks, so you have something to aspire to get. Really? Like, really? Like, alright, I have to admit, I don't hear this one too often, but it is there. It is an actual opinion. So it's for people to look up to bigger tanks that they want. You honestly don't think they will eventually see that in +1, -1? Like, if you are playing your Centurion and you see Centurion 7-1, you're like, holy shit, that's pretty cool, or any 50 or something. Like, trust me, that's still there. You can still look up to bigger tanks. There's people that spend endless times on Wikipedias and even in the tech trees looking at cooler tanks. You can preview the models and all of that. You don't need to play in shit matchmaking to have the, oh my god, that T95 is dope when you're playing your T25-2. Like, come on. It's absolutely not a thing. Like, that is the, like, we could just, no, absolutely not. Another thing I wrote down is queue times, right? People are always saying, and the discussion is always like, well, at least we have fast queue times now. Dude, if I stream for 7 hours and I have to wait a minute per game, I'd be totally fine with that. And you can even make this an option. You can even make this an option where you decide to, like, you know what? I know my queue is going to be longer, but I'll have a better chance at having a fun game. Right? I would even love to see this as a trial. Try it over a weekend. Give this matchmaking a chance, right? But no, nothing is experimented on. Nothing, absolutely nothing is being experimented on. And it's just so stubborn, so incredibly stubborn. So like for queue times wise, I would literally, and most of my chat, all right, on Twitch chat, it seems like most of them agree, all right? Now, I've been streaming for a while, so a lot of people will just, you know, nod their heads in unison when because they agree and have been watching me for a while, so they probably share the same opinion. It's kind of like an echo chamber, I agree. But Jesus Christ, like, I would literally, I would wait an easy minute if it meant that I would no longer see +2, because then every game would be a fun challenge that I could actually fight in without feeling bad. Another issue with +2, -2 is that the balancing becomes increasingly harder. And you'll see what has happened over the last year, which is absolutely bonkers, with the amount of heavy tanks that have entered the game that are near impervious until you literally reach a singular pixel on the back of their tank, right? That's what it feels like. And I agree, heavy tanks should not be, you know, super easy to pen all the time. You know, you have some heavy imps, you have heavy tanks that are not dedicated true heavy tanks, they're more like sniper tanks, like the Tiger 1. You know, the diversity is cool. But the issue is this. At +2, -2, you need heavy tanks, and they wanted them to be able to be played at -2, right? So you need to up the armor and the guns. But the other side of the coin, literally the other side of the coin, is that people at -2 cannot pen so many tanks at tier 8 now, especially the heavies, with the fucking Defender, the Japanese heavies. It's utterly ridiculous. And we haven't even talked about Japanese heavies HE guns, which is not much to do with matchmaking, but Jesus Christ, it was a bad idea. So that's another argument why I think +2, -2 is bad, because heavy tanks can feel really useless at -2, because they're designed to soak up hits and not be penned by everything. I totally get that. But because of +2, -2, there's too many extremes now. And especially at tier 7, for example, especially at tier 7, there are some tanks that are like really good and really fun until you go over a certain pen threshold where suddenly it turns to shit, right? Even a Japanese heavy at tier 9 versus a tier 9, the 7th versus tier 9, well, it's an easy pen for a lot of tanks at that point. Whilst that tier 7 versus tier 5s is just like, why? Why trouble yourself with balancing? Like, this puts such a pressure on the balancing of heavy tanks and even TDs and medium tanks and whatnot, that again, +1, -1 would be easier to balance. Look at tier 9 versus tier 10, and in you know, even tier 8 versus tier 9 is still pretty decently balanced, right? There's some really some outliers there. But that would be another reason why I think +1, -1 would be a way better idea to have as your first matchmaking, and then same tier, and then 357. And 357 should only come into play if the queue times are actually long, right? And this doesn't have anything to do in particular with the matchmaking, but by God, we could actually have, you know, I'm pretty sure we should be able to veto a map or two at this point in time. With the map rehaul, there is some really shitty maps out there. There's some changes to maps that are ridiculously bad. Now, this, again, might be one of those things where they're going to be like, yeah, but the queue times, though. If I could play never again on mines in like tier 10, 9, 8, 7, I would take that in a heartbeat if it would meant that I would have less queue time. Or more queue time. Like, I would easily wait a minute so that I would be insured of +1, -1 and never playing on mines ever again in my entire life. And, you know, but that has to do with maps, right? And one of the last things I want to talk about, I might be forgetting one or two things here, but you get the gist of my my rant at this point. And this is the absolute nail in the coffin for why I hate this current matchmaking setup so much, right? The other points I could almost forgive. Almost! if it wasn't for the fact that they completely killed off platooning and playing with friends in a direct result of making 357 matchmaking the be-all matchmaking that the matchmaking looks for first. And is by far the most common matchmaking you will get right now. Unless, obviously, unless you're playing tier 10, I guess, or something like that, but even then. And because platooning is done with 2 to 3 people, and it's deemed too powerful, and rightfully so, that if you have a platoon, top tier platoon in 357, they will dictate the game. Absolutely dictate the game, because it's really good, right? And here is another argument why 510 matchmaking and same tier matchmaking should be ahead of the curve in front of it. Currently, if you platoon up in anything but a tier 9 or 10, you will never, ever see the day where you're top tier in 357 for the correct reasons that I just told you about. But you will, like, it's just like, so if you want to play a tier 7 and you're going to platoon up with 2 of your friends, your tier 7s will, at the very least, see a lot of tier 8. And you will see a lot of tier 9. Like, you will almost, like I said, you will never be top tier. You're just completely fucked. And so you want to play with friends, but you can't because your matchmaking will completely screw you. Completely screw you unless you're playing tier 9 or tier 10, because those things cannot be fucked by the matchmaking. And this is a real fucking issue, because a lot of people that start this game is from mouth to mouth. Like, it's like they hear from friends like, yo, you want to play this game? And they platoon up together, they go tier 1, tier 2, they're all fine in matchmaking, tier 3, they're still fine. And then, you know, tier 4 or 5, they start seeping into the +2 matchmaking. And you have these new people in tier 5s playing against tier 7s all night with their friends. Like, do you honestly think that's a good fucking business decision to completely screw over your new players? And even then, people like me, or people in general that have played this game a lot, yeah, we don't want to be playing tier 9 and 10 all day. There is fantastic, fun, quirky tanks out there at tier 5, 6, 7, and even 8. There is a lot of fun, and there we go again with the diversity. There is a lot of tanks I would love to play more. And I would love to, like, fuck around with friends, right? I want to have, like, some weird platoon at tier 6 or tier 7. But, like, literally, you get shit down your neck by the matchmaking right now. And the platooning in 510, you could be top tier there in 510, right? You could be 2 or 3 people out of those 5. And you would still have a pretty, you know, significant decision on the outcome of the game. But even if you're part of a platoon with 3 people in 510 matchmaking, you will find yourself that you actually have a decent challenge ahead of you to still be winning the game and not be super frustrating. And that is my main issue with this matchmaking setup as it is now, is that it completely and utterly destroyed platooning up. There is far less platooning going around that I see, and I've seen myself, I've tested it myself, I've seen other community contributors, and by now past community contributors that have now gone from it, test this out as well with, like, playing a whole night with friends and recording your whole session, stuff like this, and you're literally bottom tier like 90% of the time. And it's just no fun. And this is an online multiplayer game that relies heavily to be playing with friends. It makes it so much more fun. Like, every game, like pretty much every game, it gets better playing it with some good friends, having a beer, having a laugh. And it's personally affected me a lot as well, because the whole thing of my streams in the first years was platooning up a lot and just having a blast, having a lot of fun. And that was with the old matchmaking with old artillery and all that shit. And it's just incredible that a year down the line or so, they still haven't recognized this shit. Like, it feels like this never talked about. And it feels like it's an overlooked thing that people don't talk about the fucking platooning. It's like everyone is suddenly okay with it or something. We forgot that we can play with friends. Like, it's just like if Wargaming literally plays their own game, then they probably don't play in platoons. They have no friends to play with or something. Because if you play in platoons and you don't play tier 9 or 10, you can literally go fuck yourself. And as somebody who has free marked a lot of tier 9s and 10s and wants to, like, have some fun in some lower tiers every once in a while, you can just go fuck yourself. It's horrible decision making, and it boggles the mind that they've done this. And the solution is literally so easy. So incredibly easy. 5-10 matchmaking, same tier matchmaking would fix platooning. It would make the balancing of tanks a lot better. You can still have a lot of tank diversity with like 400 or 500 different tanks. There's still more than enough challenge, because we all know that a lot of people are kind of pancakes playing the game. Like, it's just like all of these things that people always tell me as a counter argument just don't follow through whatsoever. And once again, just to reiterate, the biggest thing I don't like about this is that it fucking kills platooning, which is one of the most fun activities you can do in World Tanks, right? If you have, and even for people that are just starting out, that are playing with their friends, they're getting fucked. Like, the new players are getting fucked, the old players are getting fucked, everybody's getting fucked, and then even the most popular tier to play for making credits, which is the highest tier of premium tank is tier 8. That's where everybody makes their money. And guess what? Tier 8 is heavily affected by this bullshit matchmaking, where they get pounded by tier 9s and 10 day after day. Why do you think Frontlines is so popular? Because it's only tier 8 versus tier 8. Sure, there are overpowered tanks at tier 8. Sure, there's some fucking misbalancing. But overall, my god, you should try playing some of that if you haven't already. And you will notice that tier 8 matchmaking can be so much fun. If the regular matchmaking would be better, holy shit. And that is my rant about matchmaking. Holy shit. Anyway, that's my rant. You know, like I said, it's gonna be a video up for the Twitch chat so people can just check it out, so I don't have to rant about this every single time I stream, because a lot of people are asking about it. A lot of people are ranting in the chat about it, are being frustrated themselves, and you know, just letting you know my stance on it and what I think is wrong, and even how I would like to fix it. It's so easy, and they're just not doing it. They're not even experimenting with an answer. GG. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, guys.